Alrighty, well now we come to the panel that legions of fans everywhere were looking forward to. I mean, this was one of the big panels. I mean, honestly, it's Game of Thrones has become so esteemed, not just in the eyes of fans, but fans of the books, fans of the source material, fans of the fantasy genre, uh, but also general audiences. So So honestly, it was one of the bigger panels I thought at Comic Con, or at least one of the more esteemed panels, one of the ones that people were really looking forward to. Um, and one thing I actually didn't know is that Craig Ferguson actually was the moderator for it. And again, going in, I just thought we were going to get your standard. Like I said, I didn't know he was going to be the moderator. So when he showed up, I said, "Oh, okay. Well, this should be fun." And real quick, I just wanted to say that good job. Um, I mean, he kept things light, relatively stress free. He did a pretty good job of moderating. I thought he handled the question process pretty well. He asked some of his own questions while at the same time leaving ample time for audience questions. Um, and overall, yeah, he did a pretty good job of keeping it a fairly lighthearted, stress-free environment while at the same time uh, trying to trying to keep the questions appropriate, keep the questions relatively spoiler-free for. Actually, I don't really know how you can spoil something like Game of Thrones at Comic Con where presumably almost everyone knows about it, or at least everyone at the Game of Thrones panel presumably knows about what happens in Game of Thrones. So certain things like the Hound and Brienne, that little fight, um, that was brought up. So you could technically count that as a spoiler, but again, everyone who's there, or nearly everyone, has probably watched the episodes up to season 4 at this point. So I think the term spoiler is a little I don't think is completely appropriate. However, the panel itself, it was your standard Comic Con panel where they got several members of the cast. There was Kit Harington, Rose Leslie, John Bradley, Maisie Williams, Sophie Turner, Natalie Dormer, Rory McCann, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Pedro Pascal. Um, who else? Gwendolyn Christie. Obviously, George R. R. Martin was there, and the creators of the show, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. I hope I didn't forget anybody, but obviously, it's not the entire cast. I mean, there are a few notable exceptions, namely Peter Dinklage, Stephen Delane, Lena Headey. They must have been busy. I don't know the specifics of why they weren't there, but still, it was a pretty big turnout. And for the most part, the questions were attempted to. The audience and Craig himself did attempt to divide the questions evenly between each of the actors, so no actor was too marginalized or sidelined. So, so as a panel itself, I thought it was pretty accomplished. Has it really done anything to have me looking forward to season 5? Well, not any more than I already was, unfortunately, because early on there was this establishment of rules when it came to questions. I mean, you could not ask George R. R. Martin or David Benioff and D.B. Weiss any spoilerific questions about season 5. You couldn't ask them what is going to happen. Um, you could ask them what the creative process was, something like that, but you could not ask them anything that is just, you could not ask them what was going to happen, and you could not ask them about something that is eventually going to happen that you happen to know about. So there was that. So really, the only topics about season 5 that they covered in any detail, or at least that I can remember, were the assurance that we were going to see more of Stannis Baratheon and his exploits above the wall, which they expressed enthusiasm, appropriate enthusiasm, I think, considering who they're working with. Working with Stephen Delane as Stannis Baratheon, they think he's a fascinating character. I agree that he is a pretty interesting character, although in comparison to some characters like Tyrion, I don't think he is as interesting. But that's another argument for another day. All the cast seemed pretty enthusiastic to be here, with one exception, and that was John Bradley, the guy who plays Sam, the pudgy friend of Jon Snow. He honestly seemed pretty nervous. He didn't really seem all that enthusiastic at first. Maybe he was just shy. I mean, he got a little better as the panel went on, and I don't mean to single him out like this guy was particularly bad. He wasn't bad. He just was not. He didn't really seem as pleased to be there as everyone else. But like I said, he warmed up towards the end. And the second bit of info that they dropped about season 5 actually came in the form of this video showing the new cast members, several new cast members that they were going to have, particularly in the way of the Martells and other Dornish citizens. I'd be lying if I said that I knew who any of these people are. I don't know these characters' names, and the actors. Some of them I vaguely recognize. Maybe I've seen their name once in like a news article or something, or when I was just browsing the web. But yeah, I didn't really recognize any of the actors apart from one, and that was the last one, Jonathan Pryce. They're putting Jonathan Pryce in the show. Finally, they're giving him something. Finally, they're giving him something mainstream that presumably will actually use his talent, because Pirates of the Caribbean, he was just kind of thrown away. He was kind of thrown away on this governor character. I don't know what drew him to the G.I. Joe movies. I don't even know if he's going to do the third one. I hope not. Maybe he said, screw that, I'm doing Game of Thrones. But Jonathan Pryce, I don't even know what happened to him after the third Pirates movie, aside from doing G.I. Joe. I guess he's been doing a lot of smaller projects. I mean, he is he's looking his age. I mean, he's actually, no, I'm not going to make a crack about that. That's just that borders on tasteless, I think. But yeah, Jonathan Pryce plays this guy named High Sparrow. Thankfully, no Pirates of the Caribbean jokes were made. Although Jack Sparrow did show up at one point with a question and an invitation for some kind of party on his pirate ship. I don't know. He kind of freaked me out. Although kudos to him for doing a pretty good impression of Johnny Depp. I mean, he did sound like him. But I digress. Like I said, the panel as a whole, it was pretty decent. Like I said, I liked the very stress-free environment that they were trying to go for. I think a lot of that had to do with the numerous wisecracks that Craig Ferguson had, and what I liked about his approach is that having also watched the show, none of his wisecracks really came at the expense, of the people there. I mean, if he did make a crack about them, whether it be a crack against, whether it be a joke he made about the cast members, the writers, or the audience members, it was really all in good fun, because, like I said, he knows about several things in the show, so it really wouldn't have been it really would have kind of been uncalled for. But like, for instance, when they showed the video of the new cast members saying who they were going to play, and what they and how they felt about being on Game of Thrones. He said something along the lines of, "Oh, good, new characters that we get to see killed off mercilessly," which, you could argue that particular style of joke might be played out soon, considering we all know what kind of reputation both George R.R. Martin and the two creators of the show have for killing off characters. I mean, they've stated on multiple occasions that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss actually kill off more characters than Martin does. So, yeah, overall, I'm not really looking forward to it any more than I already was, but I don't really mean for that to sound as negative as it probably does, because like I said, Game of Thrones is this big phenomenon. It keeps on growing. I'd be lying if I said some of the questions kind of bored me. I mean, some of the questions were somewhat repeats of questions I've already seen asked of this cast before. And some of them were just kind of little, almost survey questions, asking their personal preference, dragon or direwolf. But certain questions I thought really hit the nail on the head. I thought really demanded some well thought out answers, and thankfully we got them. So yeah, overall Game of Thrones panel, it was a pretty competent panel, and yeah, if it sounds any better saying it this way, I'm not looking forward to season 5 any less. I mean, my enthusiasm for season 5 has not diminished, so I guess that's something. I mean, can you imagine what would have happened if the cast and creators of this show, the cast and crew of this show, showed up with absolutely no clue what they're doing, and with zero enthusiasm? It would have been a much longer and more awkward panel. So yeah, everything ran smoothly, and I'm sorry if I'm being a little boring on that front, but if everything goes smoothly, it's kind of like talking about a good movie versus talking about a bad movie. Talking about a bad movie is probably more entertaining to watch a lot of the time than talking about a good movie. And I think the same goes for something like this. When a panel goes well without necessarily giving away too many tidbits about what's going to happen, then there's not really much you can say. And honestly, I think I've been talking too long to begin with. So yeah, I'm going to cut it off right here before I continue to embarrass myself.